we're in uncharted waters right now with the cattle industry as far as numbers, as far as demand, as far as exports. I think there's a lot of initiative and incentive to increase the herd. I think we'll see it first in the southeast due to moisture and our conditions down here, pasture costs and all. But the big hindrance in our country, which I'm from Florida, is the fact that these heifers that have been held by the ranchers down there are bringing phenomenal prices, all-time highs. And we've marketed cattle. We're in the ranching business and the marketing business. We marketed the replacement cattle for the last 2 months, hard and heavy. And it's due to the fact the price they're bringing. Nobody's ever sold a $1,000 heifer yearling before. We never yearling $900,000 out of our country. And most of the ranchers in our country are my age. I think what the median age of the rancher is 63 years old. And we're looking at the other end of the tunnel. And we look at by the time those cattle start paying themselves off and paying us some dividends, well, this market still be here. And that de-incentivizes the incentive of keeping heifers. And I believe there's going to be a lot of soul searching done before this herd increases much. I think the market's going to have to level off and stop the upward plateau before there's real serious heifer retention.
What's going to be the best way to kind of address the supply side factors?
Well, as we think about the supply side, we recognize that in 2011 we went ahead and liquidated close to 1 million head of beef cows. So severe liquidation last year, a lot of that driven by drought in the southern central plains. There was one bit of good news as we think about last year. Indian inventory reports showed the beef heifer replacements were up 1%. So there is some areas of the country, you look at that data, as well as some of the beef cow numbers by state, it would suggest in the northern plains in particular, and to a lesser degree in the Pacific Northwest, we are starting to see a little bit of beef cow expansion.
And on the weather situation?
It absolutely is. If you think about record high calf values in 2011, we would suggest that calf values will be higher again here in 2012. So the economic incentive is there to expand, but Mother Nature's got to cooperate. So we really just have to get better moisture conditions, especially in the south, the southeast, before we see the total herd start to expand.
Well, there's an awful lot of talk about herd expansion, and a lot of things have changed. Of course, the most recent numbers coming out letting us know we've got fewer cows than we've had since back in the 50s. And I think a lot of that, and most of that, especially if you look at specific regions, has been driven off the environment. There just hasn't been moisture. And I think the economics today and what we see of profitability of the cow-calf producer and what we see coming down the road for several years to come, there's some awfully attractive profitability looking at for cow-calf producers that have the ability to expand. And so it seems today what we're seeing is some expansion in some areas that have feed resources. Obviously, the Southwest is still really recovering, and in a lot of areas, you know, there's some rain. In some other areas, they're still awfully dry and buying their feed. They just don't have the ability to expand. But I think definitely the market is saying, and the demand we're seeing both domestically, the demand that we're seeing globally is sure giving an awful lot of incentive and optimism in the markets right now to think about growing the cow herd. Sure, anytime we think about expansion, you know, the first thing we do is we start keeping those heifers that we were going to send to the feedlot, we keep them back at the ranch. So those initial triggers for expansion actually decrease our fed cattle supply for a couple years until those heifers that we've pulled back into the herd are obviously up having calves. And so there is that 2 to 3 year lag from when those heavy expansion signals are sent to then actually getting us through that low point because of those. Again, we're taking heifers out of our fed cattle supply and keeping them back in the ranch. But until we can get them back in the cow herds, we're looking at probably 2 to 3 years before we start seeing that impact.